So now let's go into the lessons from the chapters 1 to 3. The first lesson, and I have 3 lessons here that I want to go over. The first lesson that I have for us today is, I'm going to title it, What God Gives Us for a Faith Mission. So you're coming from somewhere, you have a promise that God has promised to you, and you are trying to enter into the promised land. You are currently in a place where where we are right now, they've not yet entered the promised land, they're about to enter. So this lesson is useful for us in that you're trusting God for something. You've not yet entered into that promise, how to behave before entering into the promised land. The first thing is we need to understand, what does God give us for a faith mission? And this is important, is that many Christians, our faith leaks because we start on a faith journey, and on the way to that, on the way of that journey, we get discouraged because we feel like we are not fully equipped for that journey. I want to just show you that this is what God gives you for a faith journey. There's nothing wrong with what you currently have. Now, let's look at Joshua 1, 3-5. It says, I promise you what I promised Moses. Wherever you set foot, you will be on land I have given you. Wow. From the Negev wilderness in the south to the Lebanon mountains in the north, from the Euphrates River in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west, including all the land of the Hittites, no one will be able to stand against you as long as you live. For I will be with you as I was with Moses. I will not fail you nor abandon you. What did God give Joshua for this journey? God gave Joshua a promise. Next, God gave Joshua an instruction. He said, be strong and courageous, for you are the one who will lead these people to possess all the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. Be strong and courageous. Be careful to obey all the instructions Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything you do. Study this book of instructions continually. Meditate on it day and night, so you will be sure to obey everything written in it. Only then will you prosper and succeed in all that you do. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua was about to go into an impossible journey. They will have to cross River Jordan to enter into this land. This land was not empty. People were in the land. They will have to fight and kill and do all these things to enter into this, promised land. So you would expect, I don't know, about me, I would have expected that if you call me into a board meeting and say, I'm sending you to this place and I want to give you, a message before you enter, I would have expected a plan. I would have expected, like, this is how you go in. When you enter that place, turn left. When you enter here, turn right. When you enter here, do like this. I would have expected the whole plan before I start. But what God gave Joshua to begin was 2 things, a promise and an instruction. And the message for us today is, God will always give you a promise and God will always give you an instruction. In short, faith only begins when the will of God is known. Faith only begins when you know the promise of God. So what has God promised you about a particular situation? Once you know that promise, you are already, you can start your faith journey. But faith doesn't begin when God tells you the plan. God most times will not tell you the plan of how you will get into this promised land. He just wants you to take the promise and obey. So if you're in a place where you're feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I don't know how this is going to happen, it's really not your concern to know how it will happen. Your job is to know that it will happen and what He wants you to do, not like how exactly to happen. God told Joshua to meditate. Just meditate in my word. Be strong, be courageous, don't be discouraged, don't be afraid. I'm with you. Now you can go. And it sounds like, what? You're telling me to go and do all this, but that is it. Throughout the Bible, God gives people His promise. What we need to do is we need to know the promise, believe the promise, and reckon the promise. Those are the 3 things you need to do with what God gives you. God has told you, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You are trusting God for money, and God has given you that word as your promise. Okay. What you need to do is to believe it. And many people don't believe the promise of God. We just mentally say, oh, yeah, I know that. But you need to believe that the Lord is your shepherd. And believing takes work. It takes a lot of work to believe the promise of God. It involves you confessing that word. It involves you meditating on that word till it enters you. And you believe that truly the Lord is my shepherd. After you believe, you need to reckon. So what does it mean to reckon the promise of God? It means to believe that it will happen for you. You can believe that the Lord is a shepherd generally. You can believe that God has a lot of money somewhere. You can believe that God can create money if you want. You can believe that. You can hear my testimony and believe that it's possible to get married. But you need to reckon it. Reckoning means taking the promise of God and applying it to your life. You need to believe that God can do it for you. Just believing that God can heal, or God can provide, or God can bless, is not enough. You need to believe that He can do it for you. Believing a promise is like accepting a check. I give you a check of $10,000. I give it to you. That is, you believe it. You take it from me. To reckon that promise is to take that check to the bank. The reason why you have the confidence to take the check to the bank is because you believe that you are the right person to cash your check. If you take the check that I've given you, but you don't see your name on that check, you won't go to the bank to cash it because you don't believe that check applies to you. Does that make any sense? But you take a check, you believe the promise, and you have the guts, the confidence to take that promise, to take that check to the bank is because you have reckoned it that it is true in your life. That's what you need. You really don't need the plan of what will happen when I get to the bank. It's not your business. Just go to the bank and cash the check. Whether the money will come in or whether the money will not come in, how the bank will count the money and give you the money, where the bank will get the money from to give you is not really your business. What your concern is do you have the check? Yes. Do you have the guts to take the check to the bank to cash it? Which is why God kept telling Joshua, don't be afraid. You need to be strong. Because the promise that God gave Joshua is huge. Imagine God telling you that anywhere you step belongs to you. God told him, He said, you will not step on any land I have not given you. Wherever you set your foot is your possession. Do you know how ambitious that promise is? So God knew that this promise is ambitious. It will take a lot of believing, a lot of reckoning. That's why God told Joshua to be strong. So we need strength to even reckon the promise of God. It takes strength to believe that it will happen. And throughout this book of Joshua, whenever they had to do something massive, like cross the Jordan or take down Jericho, God will always come and give them an instruction. And lesson again from there is that God gives the instruction as you need it. God will not show you the entire plan of the journey. It will tell you as you need, as you move here, it will give an instruction. Once you obey that and accomplish that, give you a next one. So if you are wondering that why am I not hearing an instruction, maybe you've not gotten to the stage where you need it. Go back to the last instruction that God gave you. Go back to the last word that you heard from God. How have you used that word? How have you reckoned that word? How have you obeyed from that word? It's until you finish one instruction from God before He gives you another one. Now, moving on to the second lesson. The second lesson that we'll see from these two books is that faith requires courage. So let's look at Joshua. In these first 3 chapters, we see many acts of faith. We see them walking to the river Jordan. It's like, it makes no sense. They're just walking to a river, expecting what will happen. We see them walking there. We see them crossing, we see them walking there. We see them crossing the river. We see Rahab, an unbelieving woman, a harlot, right? Trusting, believing that this God that these people are talking about is real. Imagine Rahab telling her family, who are, Jerichoites, I don't know what they are called, but who are people of Jericho, that she has been a part of a coup. She has been a part of a plan to overthrow the government. It takes faith to do all those things. It takes faith for Rahab to believe that this God will be merciful to her even though she is a harlot. It takes faith for Rahab to believe that this God will accept her even though she's not an Israelite. It takes faith for Rahab to have hung that piece of cloth on her window. People would have asked her, why is this cloth on your window? What would she have said? People would have asked her day in, day out, why are you keeping this, on your window? The people of Jericho already heard of the Israelites. They already heard that they were coming. That's how Rahab knew. Rahab also had already heard of the exploits of the children of Israel. They've been hearing. So for Rahab to tell her family that I've joined a coup, I joined a plot to take down the president of Jericho, and trust that none of them would have sold her out or killed her. Rahab was putting her life on the line every step of the way because she's a harlot. She's not a royal, high-born person that they will maybe not kill. Like, she's a harlot, she's very dispensable. If anything, if they had caught her at any point in time, she would have been dead. Like, it takes strength for Joshua to tell the Israelites that let's go to Jordan. All this, in this scripture, we see different people like having faith to take action. What is missing in our faith most times is action. Many of us, it's not difficult for us to believe. It's not difficult for us to even reckon. It's easy to reckon. It's easy for you to think that God can bless you. But many times, where we fall short is in the action. The truth of the matter is that faith always requires obedient feet. That's how I'll say it. Faith requires obedient action. When God tells you, walk to the river Jordan, it takes strength. And that's the missing part I want us to know today. People will tell you that, with your faith, you have to back up your faith by action. But what you need is strength and courage. Which is why God kept telling Joshua, be strong. Be strong. God knows that having faith that results in action is not easy. God knows it. He knows it. Jesus Christ, who is God, was going to the cross. The Bible says that he wept and his tears were like blood. Come on. He knew. God knows. The Bible says we don't have a high priest that is not touched by the feelings of our infirmities, the feelings of our weaknesses. God knows that it's not easy. He knows. It's not easy to believe that money will just appear. It's not easy to keep believing that you will get married after many years of waiting. It's not easy to believe that you will conceive after many years. He knows all these things. But he's asking you to what? Be strong. Faith requires strength. It took strength for Joshua to walk down to the river Jordan. It took strength for Rahab to hang that cloth. It seems very easy to just hang clothes by your window. It seems very easy to just hide people, but it takes strength. God always calls us to do seemingly risky things. We can see that in the Bible, in many instances. How did David take down Goliath? David used stone. Imagine if David was your best friend and David told you that, Tayo, I'm going to kill Goliath tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, how? I'm going to just throw a stone on his head. You'd be like, what? Are you serious? Esther going to meet the king is risky. Abraham leaving his father's house because he heard a voice to just go somewhere. It seems like he has lost his mind. God always causes us to do seemingly risky things. Check the Bible. Most people that are in the Hall of Fame of faith, they didn't do easy things. It was never easy. So I feel like it's a trap of the devil for you to think that faith will be easy. For you to think that it will be so, it just come that way. No, I can sit here and tell you 1,000,001 times that God has showed up in my life. I can share testimony after testimony after testimony. And when I share them, I can make it look easy. But just that it was difficult. I'm going to give you an example. Last year, I was traveling to come to the United States. I was denied my visa 3 times. Every time that I paid another visa fee, every time that I traveled to Abuja, every time that I dressed up, I went to face my visa officer. It took strength. It sounds easy to just say, oh, I did my interview 3 times. I got it on the 3rd try. It's just easy to say. But put yourself in the shoe. Every day, trusting God, getting denied the first time, coming home, crying. I went through all those circles, crying, praying, fasting, dancing, doing everything, fasting, going back again, getting denied again. Continue to trust God. Like, God, you told me this thing. Even though the door is shut in my face, once, twice, I will keep going back until the door is open. It takes strength. Faith is easy because the Spirit of God helps us. Because the Spirit of God gives us strength. Faith requires courage. That was why God told Joshua, be strong and courageous. So I'll just tell you today that if you feel like God wants me to do X, Y, Z, but Tayo, it's not easy to keep trusting God. Tayo, it's not easy to keep going back. It's not easy to stay in this job, even with how I'm treated. Joseph was in Egypt. Joseph was thrown in prison. The Bible says in that prison, God was with Joseph, but Joseph was in prison. Joseph was inside. He had no freedom. He couldn't just wake up and go on vacation if he wanted to. But in that process, he trusted God. Tayo is not easy. I'm telling you that what you need is strength. You need to cry out to God and say, God, give me strength. That's the prayer. The prayer is the Holy Spirit. You promise that you will strengthen me. Ephesians 3, the prayer of strength, that God strengthen me. Fill me with strength in my inner man. That is, you need strength to actualize faith. Faith requires strength. Faith requires courage. Mary being pregnant out of wedlock. Imagine you are Mary, you are dating someone, you've been trusting God for marriage for many years, and finally God gives you a perfect man. You're about to get married, you're already planning your wedding, and then you will get pregnant because an angel appears to you and tells you you'll be pregnant. And you're just thinking, how do I tell this man that I am pregnant? We are waiting until marriage to have sex, but I'm already pregnant. Imagine the shame. I'm sure it was not probably easy to tell everybody in the street what that God had told her she'd be pregnant. So Joseph was even planning on leaving her secretly because I don't want to be part of that, this whole messy situation. It takes strength. And that it took him 9 months. 9 months. In short, I'm going to say 9 months. For the rest of their life, people will always have spoken about Mary as that girl that got pregnant out of wedlock. Because it's in hindsight now that we see Jesus as our savior. He was killed. So people will see him as, Mary's child born out of wedlock. Jesus was like a bastard child, quote unquote, on earth, right? It takes all these things. It takes strength. All the apostles preaching every day, living with the threat of death, it takes strength. But at the end of the day, when you're at the other side of victory, when you're in the promised land, when you've gotten to where God is telling you will get to, it looks like, it looks easy. It feels like, I'm happy I went through all that. But going through it, when you are in the middle, it takes strength. The reason why the Israelites that died in the wilderness, the reason why they did not enter the promised land then was because they didn't have the strength to believe in God. They wanted to stay what was easy, what they were used to. I'm used to cucumber. I don't want to make myself uncomfortable. I don't want to stress myself. Moses, let's go back to Egypt. At least we were suffering, but at least we were eating. What is your comfort zone? Is it food? What is your at least? Well, you know what? God, I will trust you, but just make sure I have food. God, I will trust, but just make sure that don't take away my makeup. God, I will trust as long as I still have a car. Okay, God, you want me to do this? Okay, no wala, but please, take away everything. But don't take away food. Don't take away, let me just have money for vacation. What is that comfort thing? For the Israelites, it was food, it was cucumber. It was the comfort that they had, the fake comfort that they had in Egypt. It's like, God, I will obey you to go to the promised land, but just don't take away my cucumber. What is your own? Is it makeup? Is it vacation? Is it a nice phone? Is it a nice clothes? What is stopping you from trusting God today? What is stopping you from taking the actions of faith? What exactly? You need strength. You need to be courageous. You need to believe in God. And you let that belief create in you strength. Thank you very much for listening. God bless you. Bye.